Thank you. Thank you. Please remain seated. Hold your applause. You know, I wrote this whole thing, but as I stand here looking out at all of you, I want to speak from in here, where my backup speech is located. What is there for me to say? Everything wise and witty has long since been said by minds more mature and talents far greater than mine. But still, what an honor it is to speak at Prize Day 2020. What's that? Prize Day 2021? What's that? Prize Day 2022? Are you serious? Why am I doing this? I've had 2 whole years to write this speech, which is kind of a lot of pressure. But I'm a Groton student, so I was prepared to take on a difficult writing assignment. I spaced out my work, spent months thinking of ideas and workshopping drafts, and used my Groton training to the fullest. So late last night, I got to work. I began to think of the night before Prize Day, of my 3rd form year. The whole Riley's dorm stayed up late talking to our prefects, and they were writing letters and saying goodbye. It was one of the earliest, most profound memories we had at Groton. And I remember thinking, Prize Day, that just seems so far away, we'll never actually make it. And we didn't. There's a famous joke from an old movie. 2 elderly women are at a Catskills mountain resort, and one of them says, "Boy, the food at this place is really terrible." And the other one says, "Yeah, I know, and such small portions." Well, that's essentially how I feel about Groton. Full of anxiety and stress and drama and all the pitfalls of high school, and it's all over much too quickly. Over 2 years ago, we left this campus as students for the last time. It was a strange time. The coronavirus was not yet a global issue. We made jokes about the pandemic and not returning to school. We were all so excited to come back for a great senior spring. But deep down, I think many of us sensed there was something different this time around. The whispers of taking some things home and how we may have break extended by a few weeks lodged in a tiny corner in the back of our heads. There was something off. And as we drove off that day in our cars and buses, it did not have the same feel as any ordinary spring break departure. We were not certain that in a few weeks we'd return, reeling from the cold Massachusetts air as we lugged our suitcases from the AC to 100 House, cursing under our breath. When we finally heard that we were never to return to Groton again as students, it was surreal. Many of us cried and bemoaned our lost senior spring, never seeing friends and teachers again, not participating in certain R-rated traditions. But then we stopped crying, we reflected, and we moved on. Because that is what we do. When one of our 17 friends and classmates left, we cried, although not always. We reflected, and we moved on. When the administration yelled at us, we got upset, reflected, realized we did nothing wrong, and moved on. When our final 8 weeks on this beautiful campus were snatched away by circumstances entirely beyond our control, we cried, reflected, and moved on. We stuck out quarantine. We enjoyed our summers as best we could. We got ready for college or made plans for gap years. And I think in that regard, our form embodies the founding principle of the school. No, it's not service. To those who don't know, our motto actually refers specifically to service to God. And it's not inclusivity either. Instead, I'm referring to Reverend Peabody's notion of muscular Christianity. I admit that is not a phrase we throw around here anymore, but I think it can simply be translated into toughness, resilience, patience, and fortitude. These last 2 being the very qualities our most famous graduate, Franklin Roosevelt, told Americans they needed to demonstrate during the Second World War. What we worked through during our time at Groton was remarkable. Overwhelming work and stress, athletics, the sky-high expectations of parents and teachers, raging teenage hormones, daily high school drama and controversy, which only amplified our pre-existing stresses and worries. Living away from home, learning how to coexist with hundreds of other equally confused teenagers, none of this was easy. Despite how hard those 4 years were, well, 3.5, I guess, the truth is our forum got a bad rap, and I'm not sure why. We had a lot of students leave, sure, but the ones that remained worked so hard to not get kicked out themselves. The forums above and below us got a lot of plaudits, but just like the Flick Dining root beer pork, I think we're underrated. We had it all. Athletics, we've got Caleb, literal football royalty. Commitment to environmental justice, Garrett has spent the last 6 months fighting forest fires in the Amazon. Style, look no farther than Boff. This man is to style what Groton is to advertising diversity and inclusion. Simply the best. And standing here looking at all of us laughing with and at each other reminds me of our finest moment as a forum, the senior roast. Our forum had something that is becoming a rare commodity today, a sense of humor. For 2 straight nights, our forum came together to absolutely destroy each and every one of us. And it was glorious. We laughed, we cried, we learned some truly disturbing things about somebody's nephew. It was perfect. But we laughed and in a lot of cases cried it off, went back to school the next day, and carried right on. Groton was a uniquely hard experience. We were constantly caught between 2 worlds, being normal teenagers in high school and remaining serious and ambitious in our work. For most kids our age, it's much easier because school is from 8 to 3 and it's done after that. For us, we have to run by Miss Harlan while wearing a neon headband and cut-off t-shirt on our way to a dance, only to realize we have a meeting in 12 hours to discuss our collegiate future. We deserve to be here on Prize Day, rather than watching a YouTube video from our living rooms. We were robbed of that. We are one of the smallest forums ever to graduate. Often with friends and classmates, we feel a mix of emotions: love, hatred, admiration, jealousy, respect, disappointment. But with our forum, one emotion stands out: pride. I feel proud to be a member of the Forum of 2020, to call each and every one of you my formates. Together we fought through so much controversy, adversity, and change. We are an historic forum, and I take pride in sharing our hardships together. And yet, despite all that has happened, we ended up here, sitting under a tent on a lovely summer day, in our red ties, white dresses, and boater hats, smiling with our friends and family. It reminds me of another old joke. A guy walks into a psychiatrist's office and says, "Hey doc, my brother's crazy. He thinks he's a chicken." So the doctor says, "Well, why don't you turn him in?" And the guy says, "I would, but I need the eggs." I guess that's also how I feel about Groton. Boarding school could be totally crazy, irrational, and absurd, but we kept going through it because we needed the eggs. Thank you.